this is where I differ from a lot of people. I guess the question I would ask you, you really want to live in a world where gold is $5,000 an ounce? That means that those dollars you have aren't worth bupkis, okay? A troy ounce of gold still weighs a troy ounce of gold. Okay, gold doesn't change. That's the inherent intrinsic value of gold. These paper dollars or electronic dollars, or however you want to look at it, trajectory right now clearly indicates that currencies, and it's not just the dollar, it's everything, is going to hit the floor over the next few years.
Welcome to another RTD interview. Today, I'm excited to have first-time guest, Dr. Quinton Hennigh, an exploration geologist with over 25 plus years in the mining sector. And today, he's joined us to share his thoughts on the economy, precious metals, as well as opportunities in the mining sector with NewFound Gold Corp. So, Dr. Hennigh, welcome to RTD interviews.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Well, I appreciate you for taking time to join me here on RTD. Looking forward to finding out more about NewFound Gold Corp. So, if you don't mind, quick synopsis as to who Dr. Hennigh is and how you have arrived in this point in your career.
Look, I'm an exploration geologist. I focused most of my career on gold. I have done work in other metals early in my career, but gold's been primarily it. I started my career, believe it or not, working in a small underground mine here in Colorado. I live in north of Denver, so I'm familiar with the Colorado mineral belt. Worked there for maybe 5 years, then went to college, and got a degree in master's and PhD at Colorado School of Mines in geology and geochemistry. Went to work for major mining companies. I worked for Homestake, Newcrest, and then Newmont early in my career through 2007, and then joined the junior sector after leaving Newmont. I've been in the junior space now for about 13 years.
All right. Appreciate you for sharing that. Of course, we're going to get into gold and silver and where it's heading. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the long-term outlook of it as well, given that you've been in this space for quite some time. But before we get there, I think, the backdrop for all that will be this current environment we're in now. And so approaching the end of 2020, and there's been a lot of issues with the current monetary policy, fiscal policy, and things of that nature. And it's leading a lot more people to question the dollar. And so I'm curious to find out, given everything that we've went through to this point, are you surprised at the response at all? And then also the outlook of how people are starting to question the dollar.
Yes, I've talked about this a few times. Look, I'm a geologist, so I don't profess to be a macroeconomist or something like this. But here's the way I see it, for what it's worth. Imagine you're playing Monopoly with a bunch of your friends, and all of a sudden somebody gets up, goes over to a machine in the corner, and prints out a whole bunch of new money, and then brings it back over to the table and starts distributing it, but not evenly. Let's say they just start distributing it to whoever they favor. It raises a lot of eyebrows. People go, oh, this is kind of strange. First of all, there's a lot more money, so obviously prices are going to go up. But then, other strange things happen. Like you see a lot of that money actually get focused in certain parts of the economy to the detriment of other parts. These distortions become, just wildly, catastrophic. Or they could become catastrophic over time. And I think what we see now is that, even a lot of people who haven't really given that much thought here in the United States to the dollar, its value, what it really means, are starting to question that. Your average person in a suburb in the United States is realizing, oh my gosh, they've just handed out trillions and trillions of dollars, to my neighbors, perhaps myself, but also to corporations, and certain corporations got it and others didn't. And it's very strange these days. And I think most people are becoming acutely aware that this fundamental understanding of a dollar and its value is now put in question.
All right, I would agree. And before we actually went live, I was reading some of the articles here, and it looks like everybody, from the mainstream media especially, is really talking about this stimulus hopes. And so it looks like everything is hanging on a fresh round of stimulus outside of all the other things and whatnot. And so it looks like we might be, this definitely will be favorable for gold and silver down the line. But the stimulus talks, and we're heading into a presidential, in the next couple of weeks or so. What type of reaction or response do you think that'll probably play in the metal sector?
Look, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty for a while here. I hate to say, but it's not just precious metal, but there's going to be uncertainty in a lot of different areas. What do I notice right now? Here's what I notice. I actually notice a lot of people, especially, high net worths and also funds and whatnot, actually looking to park their money in hard assets lately. Okay. And it's not just gold, but it's, gold is definitely included. Gold's benefited from this, but you're seeing people truly get concerned about a potential devaluation of the dollar, but also fear around changes in the tax law, fear around, other political uncertainty, even social uncertainties now. And I think what you're seeing is it's almost like musical chairs. The music stopped playing here recently, and everybody's scrambling to find a chair to sit in before, they don't want to be the last one standing, so to speak. They want to get their money parked into hard assets. And it's quite interesting. Look at house prices. They've actually gone up in many places. Mm-hmm. I think there's been a mass exodus out of some of the cities, and you're seeing people from New York, for example, come here to Colorado and gobble up houses. And then they do them in these little towns up in the mountains, and they think, well, my gosh, why can't I put my kid in school? Well, because the state's not designed for it. This is not New York City. Duh. But it's going to get weird. I would say in the medium term, say through the decision around this election, it's going to be up and down. Your comment about more stimulus, almost baked in the cake at this point. I don't see any way around that. They're going to have to continue to stimulate the economy, and it's going to be more and more directly as time goes on. In other words, they got to literally inject money in like they've done here recently. That bodes well for gold, but this is where I differ from a lot of people. Okay, it bodes well for gold, but I guess the question I would ask you and anyone listening to this is, do you really want to live in a world where gold is $5,000 an ounce? That means that those dollars you have are worth bupkis. Okay, right. Gold, a troy ounce of gold still weighs a troy ounce of gold. Okay, gold doesn't change. That's the inherent intrinsic value of gold. These paper dollars or electronic dollars, or however you want to look at it, they're just floating in the air. They'll land wherever. But the trajectory right now clearly indicates that currencies, and it's not just the dollar, it's everything, is going to hit the floor over the next few years.
Right. And I'd imagine, some viewers watching this, because here at Rethinking a Dollar, we've been talking about precious metal for quite some time now. So you probably have a lot of people that's in the know that's probably looking forward to those type of prices, not considering the environment we would be in. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't actually have possession of metals due to the fact that overall it's just not in the hands of the majority. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on back earlier this year when gold and silver both, for most part, took a little bit of a dive, surprised a lot of people, but yet the premiums went up substantially. Could you foresee another event where we have a buying opportunity similar to that again? Or with the current environmental stimulus and QE continue to keep prices pretty much high and reaching all-time new highs?
Look, there's in any situation, any market, you see pullbacks. Mm-hmm. So yes, there'll be opportunities. Look at today. The gold's off like $30 or something right now. I don't know. So yes, there's momentary opportunities, but overall, the trend is gold is going to go up in dollar value. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, is there something like March when everything just kind of melted down? Perhaps, but maybe nothing quite that severe. I think it'll be momentary, more like a week or two pullback here and there. Gives everybody a bit of opportunity. I would jump on them. That's the way I see it. I think those are good times to jump in. But in the end, gold will go up in dollar value. Absolutely.
Right. Right, I do agree. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on, how silver, of course, is more so the people's money, as it's always been referred to. And so it's been kind of leading the way as far as on the price side of things. Does that surprise you at all? And also, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the gold to silver ratio. Does that factor in as far as allocation for some people, or would you use that as a way of allocating your way in?
Yeah, look, I could write a dissertation or, go into a dissertation on this. I don't think it's appropriate, but okay, as far as the silver to gold ratio, let's start there. Look, it's hovering around 76, 78 right now, I think. Okay, that's actually pretty much where it's been for quite a bit of the past decade, say. So that's, we'll call it normal, for lack of a better term. Geologically, obviously, there's the amount of silver in the crust versus gold. You could go off on and on about that. It's not about what the background gold silver levels are. It's about the sources for these metals, and then also the above ground inventory of these metals. Look, silver is utilized for various things, so it's actually consumed, and a lot of it disappears. I mean, through attrition. Like it goes into components and stuff that and never gets recycled. So you always see a decreasing amount of silver, whereas gold, by and large, most of the ounces of gold we've mined through history, I'm not saying all, but a lot of them are still present above ground in people's hands or vaults or whatever. All right, so they're a little different in that respect. What do I see for silver? Well, look, silver by and large comes from as a byproduct of mining base metal. Okay, we see a downturn in economic conditions, and you see demand for lead and zinc and copper and stuff decrease dramatically. You're going to see the silver production decrease as well. I think that would bode well for silver prices, obviously. And then primary silver producers are probably the ones that benefit the most from that. Okay, so there's my view on silver. But is it like I talk to a lot of people. I hear Eric Sprott's views. He told me the other day he thinks it's going to skate past $50 and go up to at least 200. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Do you really want to live in a world where silver is $200 an ounce? It's wonderful. Let me sum it up by saying this. Let's step back and look at it from a mining perspective. Mining is and should be about making margin. Like, you should put in X amount of money, but then get out X plus Y, at the end. And that Y is what's important. Okay, the margin you make off of this industry is what counts. What's nice to see for now, is that we're able to see increasing margins in these mines, silver and gold. That's wonderful. It's what the mining industry needs. That capital comes in, and then it can be used to either pay down debt or capitalize new projects, or et cetera, et cetera. Go out and explore whatever. That influx of capital is critical to ensure the mining industry has a future. I don't care if it's silver or gold, to be frank. Okay, I'm very grateful that right now we have this environment. Now let's look ahead 5 years. Are we gonna? Let's say gold goes up to 5,000. Whatever, 3,500, 5,000. Pick your favorite number. Let's say silver does go somewhere, $50, $100, $200 or whatever. Okay, what do you think the cost of mining those is going to be at that point? In other words, are we going to see inflation around the cost of production? In other words, labor and other things, materials and fuel and so forth go up. And in effect, in 5 years, we're back at a time when we're trying to squeeze margin out. Even though the commodity prices are much higher, we're still trying to eke out a little bit of margin. Well,
it makes it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it makes it difficult from an operations cost there, definitely in an inflationary environment.
Yeah.
And so speaking of which, I'm curious to get your thoughts on NewFound Gold Corp. So you're the director of it. And so one of the things I love to do here at Rethinking a Dollar is to bring to the audience opportunities in the mining sector. And so I had a chance to go through your prospectus as well as your website there. And it seemed like you guys have some pretty good news going as far as being able to actually do some drilling right now. So if you don't mind, give us a little bit of about that and share some information with us.
Yeah, sure. This is a fun one to talk about. I'll tell you, good stories are always fun to tell, right?
Yeah.
So, look, I became familiar with NewFound in January of this year. One of their directors, Craig Roberts, a friend of mine, he and I got in a discussion about some of the work I did at Fosterville a few years ago with Eric Sprott, and I talked about the geology and the appearance of the core and what made it so unique and da da da. Okay, then he says, oh, well, Colin here, who runs NewFound, has some photos you ought to see. Okay, so Colin shows me, this is when NewFound's private, of course, so, there's no issue here, but they had drilled a hole recently. I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was late last year or something. But he had photos of core that looked absolutely identical to a lot of the stuff I saw out of the early high grade from Fosterville, out of the Eagle Zone and so forth. And when I looked at this, I thought, my goodness, this is, like lightning can strike twice, to get to see something so unique twice in one's career is pretty rare. We actually booked a flight up to Newfoundland like immediately. I said, well, let's go see this. And we flew up there and I got to see the core firsthand, and hands down, I could see the stark similarities between the newfound discovery of high grade at Keats and the swans, the swan, the eagle, and so forth, high grades at Fosterville. Okay, so I actually took some photos and I put them together. I think in the presentation they have like side by side comparisons of pictures of core. Those are pictures I provide. All right, so what does this mean? Well, look, the discovery there is very intriguing. Eastern Canada is often thought of as hosting, small, unpredictable deposits, nothing of magnitude. One of the first questions I asked myself when I got to Newfoundland in January was, is this thing going to be small, or does it have, potential to be big? And I looked at their structural data. They had a lot of geophysical data. And I came to the conclusion that the structures and whatnot that host mineralization, that control the system there, are actually very well behaved. That's the kind of thing you want to see, so that you have the proper structural regime to host a significant deposit. It's not been all chopped up into little pieces or something, so that convinced me that, yes, there is absolute likelihood that they're going to be in a nice, well-behaved structural regime that can host a deposit like that. Now, the second thing I looked at is, is this indeed an epizonal gold deposit of the nature of Fosterville? And, after looking at the core and a few other things, they had a lot of rock samples they had found across the property. Absolutely, hands down, it is the same environment, same geologic environment. Very high grade part of within this type of system, a very high grade part of the system. These things can produce wonderful deposits. There's been a few of these mined in human history, but most times, because of the nature of how these form, they get uplifted and eroded away. You don't see them. But here we have preservation in Newfoundland, preservation of an entire belt that's just right at that critical level where you could find high grade literally down the entire thing. Okay, so fast forward. All of those indications that I saw back in January led me to work out the share swap we did with NewFound in March, I think it was. And, Noble, the company I'm chairman of, now owns 11% of NewFound. They also own shares in Noble. I can't remember the exact percent, but I think it's 3-point-something%. Okay, fine. Let's move forward. They go through the IPO process. They come out of the gate in August, I think it was. Of course, gold had spiked and then started coming off. So they came out at a time when it was coming off sharply. Everybody thought, oh, well, this is just, this is one of those stories that maybe was a flash in the pan or something, I think. And a lot of people, good on them. They were able to pick up cheap shares. That was great. So a lot of people got very cheap shares when they IPO'd. Okay, now fast. They then announced a 100,000 meter drill program, and wham, 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 they're starting to drill holes. And they announced about, I think 2 weeks ago, we announced the labs are stuffed up. I'll tell you, the labs are just, the turnaround's horrendous. But they managed to rush 2 zones they identified in one of the first holes at Lotto. Lotto is actually 2 kilometers north of Keats. Okay, so think about that for a minute. 2 kilometers north, they had 2 around 4-point-something, 5-point-something meter intervals. Obviously high grade because they had visible gold and stuff. So they rush these things and they get fantastic numbers. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but my recollection is it's something like 4-point-something meters of 42 grams and then 5-point-something meters of 25 grams. People can look it up, just for caution. Look, it's that intercept is basically on a similar structure to Keats Zone, 2 kilometers to the south. So it's on a secondary structure east of the Appleton Fault, same position. it really causes one to step back and think, wow, you know, are the, you know, like Occam's razor, it would be very unusual to get two completely independent high grade systems like that. More likely that they're going to be connected at some level, like, you know, geologically, you know, it'd be very odd to get. So my view is there is potential that the high grades will link up at some, you know, geologically link up in the subsurface somehow, some way. And quite frankly, I think this system is going to deliver probably one of the best discoveries in North American history for the past, you know, 20 years or so.
Really. And so I do believe that there's a lot of promise in it. Given the fact that you guys have some very promising shareholders are part of that, can you share some of the other shareholders that I think the audience would definitely love to hear more about?
Yeah, sure. Look, you know, everybody knows that the Collins group there, Palisade is obviously a big shareholder because they're the ones that got the whole thing started. And then Denny's group, Goldspot, is a big shareholder. But you know, you got Eric Sprott has a large shareholding. He came in when the company was private, as did Rob McEwen. All right, so I don't know the percentages right off. You know, I don't have it right in front of me, but I know that they have substantial holdings. I would say between between Palisade, Eric McEwen, and Novo. Let's think about this. We probably have somewhere in the neighborhood, like, I don't know, 60-70% of that is tied up in those, in just those four names. So that means the free float, like the amount of shares that are available to the retail market, is actually pretty tight. Most of those came with the IPO. It was funny to see that IPO come out. I mean, like we were taking bets on where it would land. Nobody knew that gold price would go, you know, $200 down in a short period there. I was thinking, oh, it'll come out, you know, like I can't remember the numbers, like 2 something, and it actually, you know, more or less opened up at the price of the placement with the IPO. Well, a lot of people, I mean, as far as I can tell, a lot of people who were in the IPO actually sold shares that day. And I'm thinking, what a bunch of knuckleheads, you know, like, holy cow. I mean, are they going to be regretting this soon, you know?
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, well, you know what, at least the retail sector, a lot of these people that were watching and you know, they got a good buying opportunity there, and I think they'll do really well. So that's good.
Yeah. Now, part of my audience here at RTD is, you know, they're heavy precious metals holders as far as the physical aspect of it. So we're all starting to dip our toe into the mining sector. Now, as an investor who's been in this for quite some time, can you just share with us again some of the highlights of really exposing yourself to opportunities such as this for those that might be new?
Look, we need to explore and we need to find new deposits. The mining industry is vitally, you know, it's critical that we make discoveries over this cycle. You know, it's kind of like the expression, you know, please God, if you give me a second chance, I promise I won't screw it up this time. We screwed it up badly. You know, from 2004 through 2011, huge amounts of money came into the sector. You know, a lot of it went to lifestyle companies and like just old projects that had been drilled to death, and it wasn't put to use, you know, wisely. Okay, I think we're going to see a change here, a ground shift. I'm seeing a lot of new stories, a lot of new, you know, new ideas around even old projects, and that's good. What I would say is NewFound is definitely going to be one of the leaders in the pack of new discoveries in this cycle. Mm-hmm. But I think we'll see quite a few more. You know, I'm helping a number of companies, and I've got, you know, there's some very exciting stuff happening in a number of companies that I'm working with, and elsewhere. You know, look at, I mean, Great Bear, you could probably lump into this gold cycle and stuff. These are great stories. This is what the mining industry needs. It also needs, you know, young people like yourself, kind of getting the word out and trying to get new investors into this space. You know, we've had, you know, kind of this stigma that this is an old man's investment, right? You know, this is what some guy who lived through the Great Depression might invest in. Well, no. Let's go back to basics here. You know, young people like yourself, you know, I'm glad you're bringing up these topics about the value of money and stuff, because that means if your generation can see the value of, you know, the intrinsic value in precious metals and stuff, you know, maybe there's a chance here in the next few years as everything kind of caves, you know, collapses, that precious metal take their right spot, and that's they become money once again in, you know, some way, shape, or form. Okay, so big talk, but you know, from a geologist, whatever.
But no, I understand. So, Dr. Hennigh, it's been great having you here on RTD and sharing with NewFound Gold Corp with us. And so, for those that I'll also link some information beneath here. But as we get ready to wrap up, any last thoughts you want to leave us with, that's just to sign off with? And definitely, I'll keep in tune because I'm enjoying learning more myself. So, I definitely will keep an eye on the project as well as continue to do my homework and to definitely, you know, play my part.
I guess the thing I would leave everyone with is that with NewFound, I wouldn't lose any sleep at night if you own shares. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable. Okay, so once again, for those that are interested, you can find out more information as well as a website beneath this video here. So you guys are trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange at, I believe, NFG, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
All righty. Sounds good. So once again, everybody, appreciate you for joining us for this RTD interview with Dr. Hennigh. Looking forward to keeping an eye on everything and definitely finding out more myself. And if you've enjoyed this, definitely give this video a thumbs up and share this so more people can find out about all the opportunities that exist out in the mining industry. So once again, thanks for tuning in to RTD.